Anyone who has been a human trafficker knows that we like to leave the cat at the door of the house, and the sound of the cat will attract the residents to open the door to check. As long as the residents open the door, our purpose will be achieved. This method has been tried and tested, and the only time I have ever made a mistake is to give up being a human trafficker, because when I think about the person who opened the door, it is bitterly cold, and the tissue is still shrouded.
What?
I remember that it was 6 p.m. that day, and I came to the community that I had already squatted in. I can't tell you the specific community, but I can only tell you that the house is 801, and I have been squatting there for 3 days. There are 2 people living in this house, a young woman and his 5-year-old daughter. My target this time is the 5-year-old girl in the house. Just now I saw the woman in the house go out. Since it was raining outside, the woman put on a raincoat. I know that usually at this time the woman will go downstairs to throw trash and go to the doorman's room to get the courier by the way, while the daughter is left alone in the house. It usually only takes about 5 minutes for a woman to go out and come back, so the time left for me is only 5 minutes. I took out a kitten from my pocket and placed the cat at the door of 801. This is a cat who likes to bark, and the bark is crisp and soft, so it is the most effective way to attract children to watch the door. After putting the cat away, I hid on the side of the door and waited quietly. Soon the door opened a crack. I was really excited and didn't want to prepare for action, but at that moment, I suddenly saw an evil hand sticking out from the bottom of the door crack. It was the hand of an adult man. Then, a woman with a shawl and blood crawled out from the crack of the door. To this day, I still dare not look at this photo. I was too nervous to take a picture of him, but I didn't dare to give it to the police. As the woman crawled out, she raised her head and glared at me with a twisted face. At that time, I was so scared that I retreated again and again, and I had no idea what to do. Just save me. The woman asked me for help, but I was so scared that I didn't dare to approach at all. As a human trafficker for so many years, I have never encountered such a scene. After about 20 seconds, the woman must have stopped moving in less than a minute, and she must have died. At that time, I saw a sharp knife stuck in the woman's back. The woman who died in front of me was the mistress of 801. At that moment, I was a little confused. Didn't she just go out to throw trash? How could she suddenly die in her own house? The person who had gone out earlier was wrapped in a raincoat, and I couldn't see her face clearly. Now that I think about it, that person was not the hostess of 801 at all, but most likely the murderer of the hostess. I quickly grabbed the cat back and put it in my bag, then prepared to pack up and leave. But just as I reached the top of the stairs, I was suddenly stopped by a voice behind me. "Uncle, can you take me with you?" I turned around immediately. Standing at the door of 801 was a little girl, the daughter of the deceased and the target of my operation. "Uncle, I am so scared. Can you take me with you?" The little girl looked at the body of her mother in front of her and asked me for help with a cry. At that time, after a moment of hesitation, I made the decision I regret the most in my life. I took the little girl away. That night, I sold her to a remote mountain village. There was a middle-aged man with no children. That was the buyer I contacted in advance. As for the cute kitten, I also left it in the mountains. I wanted him to be a companion for the little girl. I thought it would be over at the time, but what happened next was far more than I imagined. It should have been around 4:30 in the morning, and I returned to my temporary residence. I was about to go to bed after taking a shower when I heard what seemed to be a strange cat meow coming from outside the door. At that moment, the biting cold hit me, because the cat meows sounded very familiar, just like the cat I gave to the little girl today. I thought I was hallucinating at the time, so I held my breath and pressed my ear to the door to hear it. Suddenly, I heard 2 more cat meows, and this time I could hear clearly that it was the cat I had thrown away today. Could it be that the cat ran back by itself? How is it possible that Bayer is more than 100 kilometers away from here, but I left it in the mountains more than 100 kilometers away? The teacher said that at that time I really wanted to open the door to confirm, but out of professional habits I was afraid that someone was tempting me to open the door, so I didn't open the door in the end. After a while, the cat stopped, but there was something at the bottom of the door that was stuffed through the crack. I took a look and found that it was a photo. The photo shows a man in black leading a cat squatting at the door of a household. and he is holding a little girl in his arms, ready to leave. And in the crack of the door next to the man in black, a bloody female corpse is lying on the doorway. I was stunned because the man in black in the photo was the little girl in my arms, the girl who had just been abducted by me not long ago. And on the back of the photo was written 3 words, "Thank you." At that time, I was completely confused and had no idea what was going on. Later, I found out that the woman's body was soon found by the neighbors the next day, and the police soon joined to investigate the case. This case caused a lot of sensation in our place at that time, and even appeared in the newspaper. I still remember the headline at that time: "Single woman was brutally murdered by the murderer. The murderer's whereabouts are still unknown. We are now soliciting clues from the whole society."